Hello, friends. Hello, and during this, in the midst of this flicker of a flare of a momentary coincidence that we call life, I'm glad to be sharing it with you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining us. I'm here, as always, with Eleanor Goldfield.
Hello. That was a way deeper intro than I was ready for.
Oh, yeah?
I feel like I need to adjust my entire, mood now.
Well, I wanted to let the people that are not here, which is everyone, because it takes a minute for people to start showing up. I wanted them all, hi, Kat. Hi. I wanted them all to know how important right now is. And what I said during that first 10 seconds that no one saw will never be repeated again. So you'll just, at some other point, you'll have to go back and watch it. But anyway, welcome everybody. Hey, everybody's saying hi.
Hey.
Like I asked. I appreciate it. Welcome again to the show.
And please let us know if the video is as shitty as it was last week.
Not that we can fix it, but...
Not that we can fix it, but I can yell at Restream again. So...
We're hoping the video is better this week. Last week, very jumpy. If your sound and video looks good, give us a thumbs up.
Or a pair throwing a Molotov cocktail or whatever we have over here.
Kat says it's way better this week. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to jump into it this week, and I'll talk about this more later. This week, the donations, the Super Chat donations, will be going to, we've given to a lot of causes. We've given to, it's all been causes that we are not connected to, basically. It's been, this past week, we donated, you guys donated $430 to Indigenous Mutual Aid. This week, for the first time, we are putting the money towards one of our projects, specifically Eleanor's project, to help get out the word about Hard Road of Hope, her new film. But I'll get more into that later. I want to start off by saying happy birthday, Julian Assange. It is Julian Assange's birthday. He continues to be in prison, continues to be tortured for the crime of telling all of us how our world works, telling all of us the fucking crimes that have been committed by the war criminals at the top, the ones that run the show. And for that crime of revealing that, he is still in prison. And so I think we should all take a moment and think about Julian Assange and continue to get the word out about him, because the only way he's ever going to get out of prison is going to be like so many people standing up that governments fear to continue to keep him in prison. Yeah, it really speaks to the sort of news cycle that we all exist in, this 24-hour, rollover news cycle. I mean, coronavirus isn't even trending in the news anymore. Of course, someone like Julian Assange is not going to be in the news because they want to try and cover that up as much as possible. But it really speaks to the importance also media literacy, but the importance of people outside of corporate media, not just journalists, but regular folks, to really keep these stories alive and make sure that people understand that Julian Assange is still in prison. He is still being persecuted for, like Lee said, for uncovering the secrets of empire. Much like what we've seen with other whistleblowers, the people that blow the whistle on atrocities are the ones that are persecuted as opposed to the people committing the atrocities. So important to keep that in mind and to keep that story continuously in our purview, in our paradigm. Also, quick note as we get going here, please everybody share this, let everyone know it's going on so we can build this up over the next hour, get some more people here. It is great to have everybody, and welcome to Nick, one of our great fans and donors from previous shows. I agree with everything you said about Julian Assange. And Julian Assange, the reason that, I have talked so much about him, other people that actually have some sort of, deep inside, some sort of soul. I don't know if you've heard of this. They have a soul inside. Not like corporate media or anything, but others. The reason they give a shit about Julian Assange is partially for him, but really for what he represents. Hey, thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. And yes, happy birthday, Julian. What he represents somebody who decided, I'm taking a risk here by revealing the truth about our empires, and I'm going to do it anyway. It's dangerous. He knew it was dangerous. He might not have known that they would fucking bring espionage charges against him because America, A, has never done that to someone who's not in America or American citizen, but B, never done it to a publisher. So he may not have known that, but he knew he was taking a risk. He knew it was dangerous, and he did it anyway. And he has never once, WikiLeaks has never once printed something that's false. Just get that into your head for a second. Never once. Like, the New York Times wrote a one-page story about me, and they had multiple retractions. They couldn't get a one-page story about a fucking moron comedian right without having multiple retractions. And, it was all propaganda, but it's like, compare that to Julian Assange, WikiLeaks. Susan, thank you, $5.
Thank you, Susan.
But yeah, so anyway, that is why it's so important to keep talking about Julian Assange. I know it gets repetitive. You're like, we've been talking about him for years, but really that's the only way he's ever getting out of prison.
And just a quick note, I see some folks on Facebook asking if this is on YouTube. Yes, go to youtube.com/moment of clarity, and that's where you can also donate. So this is not on the Redacted channel, which you might have already been to because you watched Redacted, which you should have. But this is on Lee's other channel, Moment of Clarity. So I put it in the chat, youtube.com/moment of clarity. If you're on Facebook, you can hop over to YouTube.
So yeah, I just wanted to start off with that about Julian Assange. We are taking your topics. We know, as we do every week, we come in with some things to talk about, but in general, we love to hear things you want us to address. I can't
remember the name of this organization, or it's basically, so far it's already been put on a bunch of library as a plugin on a bunch of library computers. I can't remember the name of it because I suck at names. But it's basically a plugin that rates news organizations based on how factual they are. And basically you get like a red X or like a green check mark. And Fox News, for instance, got a green check mark.
Right.
And Mint Press News, which I write for and does great coverage, particularly on the military-industrial complex, got a red X. Basically they said that they gave some bullshit reasons like, oh, they don't offer credits for the photographs, but they do. It's not a plugin, it's an extension. But WikiLeaks also got a red X, and the reason they gave for giving WikiLeaks a red X is because they've never retracted anything. They neglected to point out that they've never had to retract anything. But that was their reason.
They got a red "Do not trust this news source" for having gotten everything right.
Right.
Because in our fucking backwards Orwellian, Jesus Christ, what in the fucking fuckface world, that is considered wrong. They haven't gotten enough things incorrect. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda.
Coming from Texas. By the way, beware the corona there in Texas.
Yeah.
We can talk about that for a minute. So the coronavirus, obviously spiraling out of control here in the United States. When you have a fucking idiot, moron president who's running around, 1 minute he's acting like it's a thing, having press conferences every day. The next he tells people to inject themselves with bleach, and then he stops having press conferences and pretends it doesn't exist anymore. He said to be over by Easter, which I think he meant 2024 maybe. So yeah, when you have somebody like that, it just there's no leadership. I mean, granted, I understand presidents are full of shit, but a lot of people believe them. And so when you have someone said the orange clown monster, when you have him with no leadership, people are running around just spreading it like fucking
And it's
maniacs.
Important to note, Nick just noted that you can blame the governor too in Texas. Yeah, I think it's important to highlight the failures of local governments as well. And that's Democrat and Republican local governments that have failed on that as well. But one of the things that I've just recently read in the magazine New Scientist is just how fucking scary coronavirus really is with regards to the symptoms. It turns out that coronavirus also attacks your bloodstream in the sense that it can
J Blood, thank you. Speaking of bloodstream, J Blood, $25.
It can cause and create blood clots. So a lot of people are suffering strokes and heart attacks that are linked to coronavirus that they originally didn't think were. People are getting rashes. People are getting issues that are tied to chronic fatigue syndrome, where they can barely, stay awake for more than 20 minutes at a time before they need to lay down.
Well, and you had a good point, which is, so in New York initially, sorry, we can pull that back up later, but in New York initially, the fire departments were saying that a lot of people were dying at their homes from heart attacks, and that's not counted towards COVID deaths because they didn't go to a hospital, they didn't get tested, people weren't testing corpses, and they said their heart attacks, so the fire department goes to a house, a person dies of a heart attack, the heart attacks were 5 times as high as normal. And we're now seeing that, yes, COVID does affect the blood, it can cause heart attacks. So, Lori, thank you.
So, Jay Blood, thank you. And Jay Blood notes that the National Guard and local police are standing off against the Lakota people who are blocking access to the Haisapa, the Black Hills, for a Trump rally, desecrating their sacred land. So folks who might have been following the whole issue of monuments to racists, to white supremacists, the issue, and then we talked about this in the last live stream too. The Black Hills are sacred to the Lakota people, and they have long
$20, thank you.
They have long pushed to have this horrific.
So Mount Rushmore.
They're not statues. They're fucking whatever
it's called.
Carvings of random
sculptures.
old dead white guys.
So Mount Rushmore is, a lot of people don't realize this. It's not just on some random hillside. This is the most sacred land of the Lakota Native Americans, and it is just repulsive that it was ever carved into that mountain. And so. Now Trump is saying he's going to have a speech there, give a speech there in front of the Mount Rushmore, memorial, whatever you want to call it. And so right now, meaning like this minute, there's a standoff at the road where Lakota have blocked the passage to Mount Rushmore with some white vans that they took the wheels off of. And I haven't seen verification of this, so I don't know what, it's possible they already cleared it. I don't know. But I did see that there was a standoff between sheriffs and the Lakota. So
do keep your eyes out for that, and also do try to, like last week we donated funds to Indigenous Mutual Aid. Keep an eye out on Lakota and Dakota and other organizations, other Indigenous organizations that might require some help. Do keep an eye out on that if you have some extra income. Moving on here, Lori, thank you. Lori has asked if we could talk about the annexation, and I believe we talked about that. Did we talk about that on the podcast or the live stream?
No, I think we did.
Blend together.
Things do start to blend together. We did talk about annexation, I believe, on the last live stream about how it's the propaganda part of it. There's a lot of propaganda. The part we focused on last week was that Israel is saying they're now going to annex 30% of the West Bank. Annex means steal. So when you hear that term over and over again, it's like we annex the Black Hills of North Dakota or whatever, or South Dakota. The word annex really just means steal. So that's part of the propaganda. But on top of that, what Israel's been doing for years now is they've done things like decrease the water supply and the electricity to areas of where Palestinians live, and they also put these settlements in, and the settlements, what they do is that then extends where the military can easily control and things like that. So they slowly are claiming all of the Palestinian land while not allowing Palestinians to move outside of that zone. So it really is like you have an open air prison, and then on top of that, they keep taking little pieces and saying, this is ours, this is ours, this is ours. And it's just a fucking awful situation. I mean, it's absolutely apartheid, but it's, it is an open air prison.
Yeah. Sorry, just trying to scroll through some more comments here.
Get through all the comments. If you're on Facebook, please come over to youtube.com/youtube.com. I've lost control of my pen, folks. This is getting critical. The pen has gone haywire. If you're over at Facebook, come over to youtube.com/momentofclarity. And anybody who donates, who clicks the $sign next to their comment, even just a couple of dollars, for the first time, we are putting it towards Eleanor's promotion of Eleanor's new film called Hard Road of Hope. It was completely self-financed. There's no funders. There's no corporations. There's no ads in it. There's no, it is an independent film completely, and it's won a bunch of awards already, and everyone should watch it. Thank you, J9, $35. Wow.
Thank you, J9.
Incredible.
So appreciate it. So with regards to that, I should just go ahead and be transparent that this makes me feel a little uncomfortable.
I know. I'm the one who's got to say this because she hates this. But.
Because I hate all of the things to do with money. But of course, as anti-capitalists, we have to live within capitalism, right? But one of the things that some folks might not know is that promoting a film, trying to connect it with people that know how to distribute it, is expensive. And this being my first film.
And even just so for example, it's gotten into a bunch of film festivals, but to apply to get into those, you have to pay an entrance fee.
Right.
So.
This being my first film, I have reached out to some pretty radical, distribution folks, people that work with,
Thank you, Watson.
Folks that work with radical films, and stuff like that. One of the people that I reached out to worked to promote the "I Am Not Your Negro" film that was about James Baldwin. So basically, just trying to get the movie out there because these stories, thank you, Watson, need to be heard. And the stories of West Virginia are not just a microcosm of pain and suffering; they're a microcosm of radical resistance and resolve. And they're also a mirror to the rest of the United States. I've gotten messages from people all over the country saying, "Holy shit, this is my story." So I think,
it really is. It really is everybody's story. I mean, it's corporations destroying a land.
I want to share the stories of the folks of West Virginia with as many people as I can. So all that to say, that's where the money is going this week, and I really, really appreciate all of the donations. And Watson asked, "Can we donate to the BH Legal Fund? They're going to jail."
What is BH?
I don't know, and they're going to jail to
stall Trump. To stall Trump.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what it means either.
Okay. Watson, if you could clarify that comment, we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
We do like recommendations on where the funds should go for the next week. Sometimes it's not so easy. So someone wanted us to send their donations to the autonomous zone, but it's very tough to get a reliable place to donate for that. So
the Black Hills Legal Fund. Thank you. Boiled Rope Lampposts. That's a fantastic name, by the way.
From Redneckonomics. It was a beautiful documentary.
Right, yeah, no, we've connected. Yes, I'm making a note to the Black Hills Legal Fund. Appreciate it.
Like a real note on a fucking piece of paper. Do you remember paper?
Dude,
it's like this shit, and there's a pencil.
I roll analog.
How do you look at this? How do you even sharpen this thing?
I have a little sharpener.
What possibly in today's day and age could sharpen this thing?
Well, it's the same thing that sharpens my eyebrow pencil. I multitask. See? I thought you were going to say sharpen your eyebrows, and I was like, oh. I have a whole system for how you can use one tool for multiple things. Stay tuned for
Look at this is for the Amish fans out there. We're trying to win them over.
Okay.
Thank you, Watson.
Thank you, Watson. And yes, the Black Hills Legal Fund. We've made an analog note of it, as Lee would like to give me shit for, but it is literally written down, and that will be added to our list.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda. Hair character jumping up and down.
Saying number one fan. That's the most important part.
Yes, sorry. I'm sorry.
Without that, it could be a pair that has to go to the bathroom. You don't know.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Juliet.
So thank you, Juliet.
So many wonderful donations.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'm also going to put in here I have such a hard time typing and talking at the same time. I'm typing in the URL for the film, which is hardroadofhope.com. Tony, how do I donate? If you're on Facebook, you can't donate. You have to go over to youtube.com/momentofclarity.
But you could also donate to the film at hardroadofhope.com.
Well, that's not donating. That's buying the film.
You could buy it for extra, which is donating.
True. Yes, that's true.
Whoa, $50.
Oh, wow.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Christine. So appreciated.
Why is Assange persecuted for divulging classified material while John Bolton's books contain classified material? Absolutely. Donate to Assange Legal Fund. I
all
agree.
Good questions.
All good questions. John Bolton is a war criminal, is a disgusting human being. He has been around for decades pushing war. And if you actually read some of his book, Bolton was upset that Trump wasn't bombing enough. Now, under Trump, the military has bombed more than ever before. Under Obama, the military bombed more than ever before. So Obama was the most bombing president since, World War II, until Trump. Now they're bombing even more. Okay? Trump is not a peaceful man. But John Bolton was furious that Trump and General Mattis, another war criminal, were not bombing enough. And he goes on and on about how Trump was endangering the country. And that's his book. That's why he's now the liberal hero. The guy who was Trump wouldn't bomb enough, which actually brings. Am I interrupting? It actually brings us to our next story. I'm not going to get that deep into this Afghanistan story because I'm doing it on the next Redacted. I also did it in a column. You can read it at Consortium News. But this story with the Russians paid the Taliban fighters to kill U.S. military. Okay, if you have any kind of media literacy, you know this is hilarious on multiple levels. One, it's coming from anonymous sources, from the intel community. The intelligence community proudly lies to us. They have said they lie to us. Mike Pompeo said they're trained to lie to us. That is their job to lie to us. Beyond that, the information, if it's coming from someone in Afghanistan, is from insurgents we're torturing. Okay? They'll tell us whatever the fuck they want to get us to stop torturing them. Then beyond that, you have the fact that the Taliban doesn't need to be paid to kill American troops. They've been trying to kill American troops for fucking 20 years, okay? Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Tony. They don't need to be paid. It's like paying as I say in the column, it's like paying a guy who's sleeping with your wife to go sleep with your wife. He's like, all right, I'll take the money. There's no reason Russia would do that. Plus, Russia, guess what, likes us being in Afghanistan because it just creates chaos. It sucks all of our funding away. It sucks our military down. They're fine with us in Afghanistan. So the idea...
Easy with the hands on the desk.
Now I've lost my train of thought.
Okay.
You ruined it all.
Well, I don't want them to just hear
this thing. Okay, this thing is hysterical on so many levels. It's like, and you don't even and then they do the drip thing where you're like, well, there's just been so many stories about it. It must be true, but that's by design. They know that, and so half of the time it's the same anonymous sources. They talk. What the New York Times says, anonymous sources, and then Wall Street Journal says, we verified it with our anonymous sources. It could be the same fucking anonymous source. You're not supposed to, if you talk to a real journalist, like a real one, not a fucking New York Times laughable one, talk to a real journalist, they say step number one in journalism school is do not report anonymous sources unless it is fucking crazy circumstances where they're about to be beheaded and you have to make them an anonymous source. But our New York Times and CNN, they've gotten accustomed to just doing this all the time because there's no accountability. They can say whatever the fuck they want. Yeah, I have anonymous sources said that I'm the most beautiful person in the world. It means nothing.
Just to slightly, not slightly, but to change the subject, to
you're like, can I get to something that's not so yelly? Is there a non-yelly?
Can you just shut up for a second? Thank you. To answer Tony's question, have there been any laws passed to demilitarize the police?
Thank you, Lucy.
No. It's basically just
there's a bill in the House to do some things.
It's not demilitarized though. The 1033 program would stay in place, and it would not demilitarize the police. In order to demilitarize the police, you have to end the 1033 program. So to answer your question, Tony, unfortunately, the police are just as militarized as they have been before. Black Lives Matter has been painted on a bunch of fucking streets all over the country, but the cops continue to be heavily funded.
Thank you, Sophie!
And the cops continue to brutalize people, predominantly, of course, in Black, brown, and poor communities. Thank you, Charles. Harder of Hope is an excellent film. My dad was a West Virginia logger. His brother was an underground coal miner back in the 40s. Mountaintop removal is obscene, and coal mining in any form is extremely dangerous. Families suffer deprivation still while capitalist bosses continue to destroy the land and people's lives. Absolutely true. And that is why West Virginia is really just a mirror to so much of the U.S. So that's why it's important.
Yeah,
wow. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you so
Lucy.
much.
And for those who don't know Lucy Dyer, check out her art. It is
Yeah.
it's wonderful. She has a website you can check out.
Thank you, Sophie. So appreciate it. And in fact, there was something else that I was going to say. They're defunding the Minnesota PD. Rod says, yes, there are several plans to.
Thank you, Tony.
There are plans to defund the Los Angeles Police Department, the New York City Police Department, which would still
disband the one in Minneapolis.
Right, which would still, even though there's been talks of defunding the NYPD to the tune of $1 billion, it would still be the 7th largest military in the world. It would still have a budget of a declared budget, that is, of $5 billion, which is more than North Korea's entire military budget, which is $3.6 billion.
Whoa, thank you, Red Economics.
So, yeah, important to keep that in mind. Thank you, Tony. Sorry, I'm a little bit behind. Lee's getting them before I am. Thank you, Red Economics. So appreciate it. Did you learn anything about the second chemical release during MCHM spill? I have heard of the MCHM spill, which happened in 2014, the so-called West Virginia water crisis. I talk about that more in the film. I won't get into that here because we want to cover some other stuff, but I do talk about that in the film. And you can check that out over at hardroadofhope.com. Yes. Where were we? Or where are we going?
Someone loves your red hair.
Thank you.
For an easier topic. Someone asked whether Biden will show up to the debates as a robot or a body double. I'm thinking Real Weekend at Bernie's. Also, it'd be kind of a callback to Bernie Sanders. Real Weekend at Bernie's, where they put some sort of brain parasite in, and he's just kind of like up there like this. I'm thinking more like that. So
Oh, thank you, Jay Blood. Appreciate it. Whoa, shit.
Thank you, Jay Blood. Wow, $25. This film is so necessary, he says. So basically, and June, thank you, June.
With regards to the police, there's a lot of, and I recently wrote an article in Mint Press News. I think I already mentioned it last week as well. But for folks who haven't had a chance to read it, you can check mintpressnews.com, just type in my name, about the so-called struggle theater. Basically, the idea that like somehow painting Black Lives Matter on the street means that Black Lives Matter. And if you walk around DC, in every fucking window, the AFL-CIO, which they have police unions, by the way, they support cops. They're big Hillary fans. They had Black Lives Matter on every fucking window. So it's basically, how can I get people to shut up by just plastering these 3 words all over the place? And that is their goal, to get people to shut up and go home and think that these 3 words mean systemic change. But of course they don't, right? Defunding the police, demilitarizing the police in this framework of ultimate abolition, which will also lead to defunding the military. These issues are so connected. But this is really what they're afraid of course, that they are going to that people are going to make these connections. And so that's why
Thank you, Chuck.
They're trying to appease people by painting those 3 words all over the place. Thank you, Chuck.
I want to address.
Yeah.
Tim, I hope I'm not going to disappoint you, but what do you think of the Libertarian Party? Okay. Garbage. Now, here's the thing about libertarianism. In general, is there are certain things I agree with. So, for example, Ron Paul wants to decrease the amount of, holy shit, $50. Thank you, D. Paul,
I'm not getting it.
for peace.
Yay! Thank you so much.
Ron Paul wants to decrease the number of military bases around the world. I agree with him on that. There's certain things I agree with the Libertarian Party on. But the problem is they say we just need freedom, right? And that means no regulation on corporations. So they can run wild, they can dump whatever in rivers. Most libertarians believe in that. But beyond that, they don't acknowledge economic force. Economic force is incredibly powerful. It dictates our lives. So how many people join the military because of economic force? How many people do awful things in in their lives because
Coal
of
mining.
economic force. Coal mining. There's so many lists. I mean, even if it's just a drudgery fucking shit job that you fucking hate, your job is to make copies all day long and you're sitting there in a room that's 4 by 4 feet wide and you want to hang yourself, but you don't have a rope and your shoes don't have shoelaces and you're like, how do I fucking end it all if I make one more copy? And that's your life. Why is that? Economic force. And libertarians don't acknowledge that. They think that freedom, they think that freedom means let rich people do whatever the fuck they want and let poor people just get plowed over in the process. And that, to me, is the biggest problem with libertarianism. And I am sorry for the rant.
It's always, no, your rants are good. It's always boggled my mind that somehow people talk about the free market as if it were like a natural entity that could just like go off on its own. It's fucking man-made. And therefore, it is subject to whatever.
Whoa. You're telling me back in caveman times they didn't have the free market? I thought that they were sitting there with the stock exchange running solid.
The idea that if you just let it do its thing, then it'll be fine is both stupid and also not how libertarians see the free market, because libertarians believe in corporations having control over the market, which means that you're still fucking controlling it. So therefore, the idea that the free market is just untouched by everybody, no, it means that it's untouched by the only entity in this, current paradigm that could control it, which is the government. They want the government to step back and have the Walmarts and the Amazons and the Bank of America's controlling the free market that shouldn't be controlled by anything.
Keel Jones said a libertarian world would be Lord of the Flies for adults.
Totally.
And that has definitely been true. But it reminded me that someone tried to create a libertarian paradise. I don't remember if it was down in Dominican Republic or in Puerto Rico or somewhere. They went somewhere and there was very little law. It was fairly lawless because it's like up in the mountains or whatever. And they tried to create this land that they were going to make this libertarian paradise. And within the span of a couple of years, they sold a bunch of plots of land, but nobody had really moved there because everyone was like robbing each other and the contractors were robbing people. And it was just like, it never even got off the ground because everybody was just fucking stealing from each other. It was all scam artists.
Of community. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And this is a comment that we've addressed before. Robots are making all workers obsolete, and this is an interesting point because there's some friction on the left and with progressives about whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. And I think it's because when we talk about technology, we so often talk about it with regards to it being, an affront to our privacy, an affront to actual security, and it's used so often by the military-industrial complex to make lives shittier everywhere. But the idea of having robots taking over bullshit menial jobs is actually a good thing. It's just a matter of where the spoils go, so to speak. And of course, in our current system, to the victor go the spoils, to the top 1.1% go the spoils. But imagine instead if basically you had a UBI that was based on the fact that you didn't have to have people doing menial jobs because there were robots that could do those jobs. And that is the paradigm of automation and allowing people to have more leisure time or more time to address their creative interests, or I don't know, making better policy. So the idea of automation is not inherently bad. It is just like any other form of technology about how you use it and how it's tied in.
Whoa! Thank you, Watson.
How it's tied into the larger system.
Thank you, Lonnie. Watson just donated $20. Thank you so much for helping out.
I'm late. I'm sorry. Thank you, Watson, so much. Hold on.
Oh, so he's talking about. So Watson says if clinging Democrats, I think it means clinging to the Democratic Party, don't mind Biden taking money from W's super PAC. So what he's referring to there is apparently hundreds of George W. Bush former. They worked in the not supporters. They worked in his campaign or in his office. Administration people. Hundreds have come forward and said they support Joe Biden. And for the people who are regular Democrats, they're like, this is great. This shows what a danger Trump is. Trump is such a danger that even the Bush people are saying support Biden. But in fact, so that's, yes, you can, that's fine. That can be part of it. In their view, in their mind view, but it also shows how similar Biden is to George W. Bush. What Biden supports and what George W. Bush supported are very similar, and so that's why you have so many fucking Bush people being like, "Yeah, Biden's our guy."
Yeah. Lonnie, the information, the funny is always appreciated. Action steps we could take with the issues would be helpful. So, I mean, depending on which issue we're talking about, there are different action items, but I always think that getting involved in a local organization or a local chapter of an organization is really important. So, community organizing on the community level is vital. For many reasons, but also just because you can actually do things on the local level. If you're organizing in one place and then like the head of the organization is somewhere else, it just gets kind of messy. And that out of touchness really takes hold, which is, the issue of replicating the systems that we're trying to topple here. But I would say that in terms of action steps, I mean, it would need to be like a more specific question, but I would definitely say local organizing. And for instance, this weekend, July 4th weekend, there are lots of actions happening across the country that are tying a lot of issues together. Recently, there were issues with regards to Palestine. There was a Free Palestine March that was tied into the Black Lives Matter, which is, of course, also tied into Indigenous issues because Indigenous folks recognize their struggle tied to the Palestinian struggle. So this weekend, there are a lot of actions happening around the country with local Black Lives Matter chapters. There's a lot of rent cancellation actions happening here in D.C. There's a Fuck the Fourth, Free the People action happening. So I would recommend looking into your local chapters. Mutual aid orgs oftentimes will be connected to these. So if you look on, for instance, Mutual Aid Disaster Relief, they have a list of local mutual aid chapters. You could reach out to them and ask them what kind of things they're supporting or if they know of anything. So that's what I would recommend, just kind of being able to like quickly address that in the chat here.
So I want to address
Nick, thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick. I want to address what Nick's talking about. He says UBI is dangerous and isolates us, creating universal jobs that pay living wages that utilize people's strengths and passions seems like the way forward to me. We just have to have well-created jobs. So here's the thing, and I'm open to debate on universal basic income. I'm not just like 100% this is right, but I view universal basic income as a Band-Aid getting us beyond, to hopefully one day get us beyond capitalism. I don't view it as an end in and of itself. It is, yes, a way. For the reason some people at the top of corporations, some of these rich support it, is because they view it as a way to keep capitalism going. But I also view it as something that would immediately help millions and millions of people. You'd immediately
survive and thrive.
You'd immediately have no homelessness, have no extreme poverty, have no hungry children, or nearly zero. And then I hope that it would, if it were a significant amount of money, so let's take $2,000 a month or something, it would then allow people to understand that we're in a post-scarcity world, that work does not need to be just like your ability to survive does not just need to be tied to your ability to slave away all day long. Like, we live in a society that could support everyone. And I hope that UBI would help people realize that as a stepping stone.
And your value as a human being is not tied to what you're able to make in terms of profit for somebody else.
Thank you, B.
Which is how capitalism is structured, right? We labor, they profit. Like I say in my film, there's been some $5 trillion worth of coal that's been extracted from the hills of West Virginia, but it's the third poorest state in the nation. So I think
it's been basically stolen from them.
The idea of labor,
and their lives were stolen.
Exactly. The idea of labor is for us to labor so that they can enjoy the profits. I think the misconception with UBI is oftentimes that if people don't have a job to go to, then they'll just waste away and we'll be lazy and we won't do anything. But that's actually not true. Not only has that been tested in actual UBI tests, but it's just not how humans operate. Humans want to. I mean, yes, there might be a few people here and there that are like, fuck it. But humans, for the most part, want to be active members of their community. And so the idea that humans would just stop working or stop giving a shit is just not true. And also, hold on, one more thing.
Yep.
We also have to take into consideration people's ability. You know, the saying, to each according to their need, from each according to their ability. Some people aren't able to work. And some people, and even those who are able to work, do we really feel that somebody should have to work at the Amazon warehouse and piss into a bottle and not get a break from their job just because they need to make money? And that's really disgusting.
And my point, I want to highlight that in a second, and my point is that people go, oh, well, if you work hard enough for what, and I'm like, well, what about the idiots? We have a lot of idiots in this world. Many people are born idiots. It's not their fault. They're just dumb. Some people are just dumb. And do we really think, oh yeah, ha ha, fuck them, ha ha, I hope they end up homeless because they're dumb? Like, fuck you. Like, why? There are dumb people out there, right? There are people that have a lot of difficulty getting through our normal lives. There are people who like Adam Sandler movies, like they exist. And it's not fair to just be like, fuck them. They can't achieve a lot. Ha ha, we win? No, why don't we feel bad for people who are not that intelligent? Why don't we look at it like a moderate handicap or something? And then Nick also says, could we have UBJs, which I assume is universal basic blowjobs, which I totally, I agree with. I'm for it, Nick, and I think you're a genius.
I think he's suggesting universal basic jobs, but again, this idea, I think it's
close. What kind of jobs? Could be blowjobs.
Okay. I think it's time for you to run your joke about the treadmill.
Can you do that motion again? I think I've actually told it on the live stream before, which is that we're all running on the treadmill. We're hamsters on treadmills. We're hamsters on wheels. And they're slowly, due to automation and everything, we need fewer people to do fewer things. And so we're slowly taking away the wheels, the treadmills. And now the hamsters are crowding on fewer and fewer wheels and beating the fuck out of each other and being like, yeah, this is mine, this is mine. And kicking each other off. And then the politicians come forward and they say, hey, I'm going to bring back the treadmills. And everyone goes, yay. And then another politician says, I'm going to bring back treadmills and I'm going to make them faster. And everyone goes, yay. And there's not a single goddamn politician saying, why are we on the treadmills? It's not allowed. It's a fucking third rail politics. The only politician in office I ever heard say it was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Tweeted about it once, something about how everyone shouldn't have to work, have to have a job if they don't want to, or something like that. And I think she found it from me because I know she's a fan of Redacted Tonight. But anyway, no one says it.
Yeah. So what he said. The jobs issue is I think a problem of paradigm, right? The idea that we have to have jobs to give us something to do, to give us worth that's tied to a dollar value.
I want to take a quick moment to welcome everybody who's joined in the past 15, 20 minutes. We have several hundred people here on YouTube. We have several hundred on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, I recommend you come over to youtube.com/Moment of Clarity so you can donate, as Tony just did. Thank you, Tony. Thank you for your character. The donations this week, which all the donations in past weeks have gone to outside organizations. Last week, you guys gave $430, I believe, to the Indigenous Mutual Aid. And this week, this is the first time we're doing this. It's to help promote and get out there Eleanor's film. And I know it makes her cringe to do something positive for her, but to help out her film, which is an amazing film, hardroadofhope.com. It's already been winning awards. It's her first documentary. Everyone should check it out. But in order to pay, in order to get get into film festivals and things like that, you have to pay to even apply. And so we're hoping to donate money to that.
Yes, thank you. And I saw somewhere in the stream, sorry, messages are coming quite quickly, but I saw somewhere in the stream.
Thank you, Paradox.
That folks are. Thank you, Paradox. That folks are getting arrested at the Black Hills right now. So if folks are checking in on that, let us know. Post it in the chat.
Someone said Unicorn Riot is covering it.
Cool.
So after this, not now, after I saw some of you clicking away. You fucking stay there. You stay there. After this, go check out Unicorn Riot. But this actually is a perfect segue. Someone asked earlier, and there was a bit of a discussion about what are reliable news sources. Like, where do you go? Because we know how fucking pathetic the New York Times is, Washington Post, and CNN and all them, including Fox News, go off of the shit in the New York Times, or Fox News goes off of shit that they find in their toilet after they've had a giant dump. Yeah, it is a clusterfuck of circle jerks, which I think that works.
Yeah, I think so.
And so there are very few news sources. Someone wrote, they said, I can't remember, they said two sources. One of them they gave was Democracy Now! Now, Democracy Now! Is one that I came up on. They helped inform me about the world. I volunteered there some. I've met Amy Goodman. I was on a panel once with her. There's a lot of positive things to be said about Democracy Now!, for example. However, they also fell hook, line, and sinker for Russiagate and most of Russiagate, and for the Syrian chemical weapons bullshit, which we now have seen 4 whistleblowers come forward at the OPCW, the most legit agency in the world for chemical weapons. 4 whistleblowers have come forward and said the chemical attacks didn't happen. You have people like John Pilger and Seymour Hersh saying these chemical attacks didn't happen. Yes, Democracy Now! Is not flawless. They have a lot of problems. They have been falling for everything the White Helmets say, which the White Helmets is a propaganda outlet out of Syria. Sorry, go ahead.
You need to change the description. It says donations are going to Indigenous Mutual Aid. That was last week, and thank you for that. Just real quick to jump in, Paradox.
Done.
I know. I'm sorry. I just want to say I don't know the answer to this question. What an Intel ME is, how it backdoors everyone's computers. I'm sorry, Paradox. I do not know the answer to that.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Mark.
I was trying to look up the name of the tech expert that they have on the Loud and Clear podcast. I can't remember his name, but he's brilliant, and you could definitely reach out to him. If I remember his name, I will tell you.
Yeah, there's a good guy. So speaking of news sources, Loud and Clear thank you, Maki. Loud and Clear is a great podcast. They're on the Sputnik Network. But Gray Zone is a wonderful news source. Mint Press is a wonderful news source. I write for Mint. And Eleanor, both of us write for Mint Press. I write for Consortium News. Sheer Post.
Abby Martin. Someone mentioned.
Abby Martin is amazing, and actually, I wanted to mention her recent thing she did. Her recent episode she did on Afghanistan. Is brilliant, and it goes into the past of Afghanistan, what's gone on there, and how basically there is no effort by the United States to get out of Afghanistan over 20 years. And there's a reason for that. It's because we need a presence there. We need to make sure Afghanistan doesn't become powerful. We need to continue the opium supply, and we need to continue we want a pipeline across Afghanistan because it's right in the middle of all of our oil and stuff. There's many reasons. There's rare earth minerals in Afghanistan. There's many reasons the U.S. will never give up our tentacles in Afghanistan. It's not happening, okay, folks? So they need to stop it. So this latest story about Russia paid Taliban, it helped them make sure that we would not withdraw any troops from Afghanistan. That was the main purpose of that story that came out. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Nick. And real quick, Mark was saying that now would be a good time to look into the fact that police departments don't hire people who score too high on the empathy test. That is very true. This is something that former police captain Ray Lewis told me during an interview, that they give cops or potential cops empathy tests. If they score too high, they won't let them in. And the idea being that if you have too much empathy, then you can't beat the shit out of someone. And then what good are you as a cop? Nick,
They
thank
also,
you.
some of them actually also have IQ tests where they don't want you to be too smart. And I don't know the number.
And somebody made a note of that too.
I don't know the number that have it, but there was a lawsuit back in 2000. A court decided that that police departments could have an IQ test and not hire smart people. So there you go. What do the idiots do? They become cops.
So to your point, Nick, Nick writes, I believe that
Thank you, Mark.
people in a community should contribute to it when possible. So you kind of answered your own question there, Nick, by saying when possible. Not everyone can contribute to the community in an active way.
Thank you, Aspie.
And it's important that if we want to live in the kind of place where everyone is cared for, everyone has their needs met, then we have to also recognize that not everyone can be an active participant. And this is what we mean when we say to each according to their need, from each according to their ability. Everyone has a voice and everyone should be included, but not everybody can actively go out and farm organic produce or something like that. So I think it's important to not put those restrictions on in that way, but instead, again, like that adage goes, from each according to their ability to each according to their need. And that's how you build an equitable society. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thanks to all the donations, people. This is
up
$20 from Anna. Thank you, Anna.
Mark brings up the point that the stories like what we were just talking about with the IQ and empathy were likely scrubbed when they purged sites like CopWatch. Yeah,
thank you, John.
That's another good point. The purging and the censorship, which is why it's so important to support these reliable news sites. Someone mentioned Counterpunch. Which also
I've been publishing a Counterpunch as well. I didn't get through the end of my list. I've heard of one called Redacted Tonight that's really good. What else we got?
John.
Graham Elwood. We just put out the first episode of a podcast I'm doing with Graham Elwood called Government Secrets, and that is available. If you go to my Twitter, you can find it there at Lee Camp. So Graham Elwood's doing good stuff. Jimmy Dore obviously does good stuff. Thank you so much, John and Anna, for the donations. Ron Placone, I'm good friends with Ron. Ron's wonderful and does good work as well.
Sorry, I'm late on the.
That's okay. I think they like hearing it twice. They like the delayed.
John.
It's like as if there was you were 1,000 miles away from me, you're just getting it.
It's a delayed echo. John, vis-a-vis your comment, actually it's the other way around. Hitler and his pals stole a lot of ideas from the U.S. and how the U.S. treated both indigenous and black folks.
That's because we're number one!
So, yeah.
We came up with the ideas first! Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary. Then there are disabled folks who are introverts. Hold on. I feel particularly sidelined because I avoid socializing and probably would have issues with a boss. I don't feel I should have to work. Yeah, that's a great point.
Actually, Eleanor and I have both in our careers suffered from the fact that we're kind of not the I'm going to be the go make friends with the higher ups guy.
Yeah, and I think this also speaks to the power of restructuring. This is something Richard Wolff talks a lot about, restructuring the workplace so that there is equity.
Richard Wolff, another good news source.
Yeah, equity in the workplace, so that you have co-ops where everybody is co-owner of that space. And so what not only is your voice heard, but your decision is steering the company, not just a little suggestion box that your boss then sets on fire at the end of the month. So yeah, it's a very good point.
I can't find the one I wanted to find. Everyone's naming good people. Caitlin Johnstone, Dylan Radigan. Someone said Hitler sucks. I totally agree with that. Nick.
True story. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Having a drink during live chat, white wine in honor of. Thank you. Thank you so much. I too am a fan of white wine. I like a creamy Chardonnay, oaked Chardonnay. For anyone
can't get into white wine.
Who's interested?
Can't do it.
So yeah.
Yep. Artie, agree with you. Hitler was a real jerk. Totally agree.
Totally.
Thank you, John. John just donated.
So yeah, I would say some people are mentioning the shows on Sputnik, By Any Means Necessary,
Fault
Lines, Political Misfits, Loud and Clear. Great shows. Oh yeah, fair.org. Thank you for mentioning that. Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting is a badass site. It's great.
Alan, if you want another name to go with that, Alan McLeod, he writes for both Fair and he writes for Mint Press, and his stuff is brilliant, and you can never go wrong following Alan's stuff.
Margaret Kimberly, absolutely. Black Agenda Report is phenomenal. Definitely a good call. Yeah, so I mean, folks just need to scroll through here.
I know.
We don't have to keep calling them out. You guys could just
if you want a list of great sources, just go through this. Ben Norton, Aaron Mate. Actually, if you want the best person that has torn apart Russiagate, and not in a right-wing I love Trump way, in a I hate Trump, but I am a real journalist who actually gives a shit about what is actually in the Mueller report, what actually happened. Aaron Mate's done a brilliant job of just ripping it to shreds. It's awesome.
Yeah. So what else we got here?
Oh yeah. So we're getting close to 9:30. I'll do what I normally do.
That happened so fast.
I know it did. Anya Parampel, another great one. Max Blumenthal, another great one.
That's the Gray Zone Project.
Gray Zone Project. If we get $50 in the next 10 minutes, then we'll stay for another 10 minutes.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you, Lucy. So yeah, $50 in the next 10 minutes, and we will stick around an extra 10s.
And I totally got this wrong last week. I thought 20 British pounds was still $40 because that's what it was when I was a kid.
I actually looked
I think that like my brain just like left it that way.
I actually looked. Yeah, no, I looked up when it was last. Like 5 years ago, it was 1.5. So you weren't like crazy.
It was just what. Yeah, it's that shit from when you're a kid. You're like, that's still how it is. Yeah, so thank you. France is watching
France.
too. Yay!
How you doing, France? You're getting out of coronavirus, unlike us.
I love it. Oh yeah, the EU, and I looked at this because I'm going home to Sweden soon. The EU released basically a press release or whatever the fuck, legislation saying that they were opening borders in the EU to certain places like Morocco and Thailand and Rwanda and Japan, but not the US because what the fuck are you guys doing? It didn't actually say what the fuck are you guys doing, but that was basically the gist. They're not allowing
holy shit! All in one donation, $50.
Whoa, wow! Thank you so much.
Zaxaronzix. Did I get that right? Did I nail that pronunciation? Thank you. So that's really incredible.
And they're wondering, is the West really worried about China with COVID-19, anti-Chinese sentiments, Hong Kong, India-China border fight? Is this a CIA operation to slow down the Chinese economy? So
that's a great question. It is standard shock doctrine. It's like, okay, so look, if a pandemic starts from a bat in China, that doesn't make it China's fault. And in fact, China did a great job of dealing with it initially. So it's horseshit to try and blame the Chinese for this. I mean, if you want to, you can blame bats. But I don't know how you can really sanction bats or what you're going to do to stop them from either economically, you're going to hurt them. But anyway, so it's shock doctrine. We found something that we can pin on China, so we're going to pretend we hate them. And I mean, they hate them, but they hate them because China is now competing economically with the United States. So therefore, we have to crush them, which was the initial goal of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which Trump pulled out of, not because he likes China, but because of so much pressure of activists that Trump pulled out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That was designed to stop China's economic growth and tie 13 other countries into an economic partnership that would sideline China. Now we don't have the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So instead, what they're doing is all of this horseshit you see every day, news story against China. They've recently sanctioned or put restrictions on Huawei. It's a tech company, all right? It hasn't done anything wrong. It's just, you know what it did wrong? Be Chinese. That is all it is. And so the fact that we aren't working with China to come up with a vaccine, to deal with this pandemic, to fucking help the world is fucking pathetic. And you could be angry at Trump for that. You could be angry at the Democrats for that, the Republicans. They're all fucking working together to try and hurt China just because economically they're competing with our empire.
And by the way, they basically own us. I mean, so much of what we enjoy as a consumerist nation
Thank you, John.
is created in China. And so also then thereby also the idea that China is some scary communist nation is just not true. China is very capitalist. So I think, I mean, clearly it's just this the U.S. is slipping in terms of its superpower status. That's why it's flailing in the Middle East. That's why it's flailing in Africa, vis-a-vis AFRICOM. And it just wants to lash out at anybody that might be a threat to our hegemony. And, you know, China is also part of the scramble for Africa, by the way, with regards to rare earth minerals and the like. And so this is really just, and you see this with the Hong Kong protest too, which we've talked about, this idea that the U.S., particularly the far right, have been supporting Hong Kong protesters. That's not to say that everyone out there is, you know, a fucking right-wing, nutbag. It just means that the U.S. is doing this in Hong Kong. So yeah.
Thank you, Tony.
It's really, really atrocious. Thank you, John.
So someone said, a coronavirus vaccine would be a catastrophe, and I agree in the sense that it is being forced through so fast. A vaccine takes 10 years minimum to do all the testing and everything to figure out what the ramifications of giving it to people could be. And so the idea of forcing this through in a year is pretty horrifying. So really what we need is really good treatments. The one that has shown the most promise is remdesivir, or whatever. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but Eleanor said it sounds like a Lord of the Rings character.
It does.
So remdesivir, but now Gilead, am I pronouncing that right? The big pharma company that owns it, they have said they're going to charge $3,000 to get this. And their argument for why they're charging $3,000, which, by the way, we funded the creation of remdesivir. Thank you, Georgie.
Thank you.
The reason they said is because you normally would charge the benefit you get from a drug. So normally we'd charge $12,000, and instead we're only charging $3,000. That is such horseshit. It's ridiculous. The idea that you would charge, they go because someone wouldn't be sick, so you could charge $12,000. That's like saying, oh, because we created Viagra, you were able to have a child, so we're going to charge you a child. You don't charge. Fuck you, all right? No, you don't get to charge the cost of the benefit to the humanity. Does that mean a heart surgeon could charge someone the rest of their life? Yeah, you just become my butler because I saved you with my heart surgery. Go fuck yourselves, Gilead.
And to be clear, some folks are talking about like, wait, you can't go to Sweden or Europe or whatever. I'm a Swedish citizen.
Thank you, Ross.
So I can go home. So yeah, just if you're thinking like, oh, maybe I'll book a flight to Europe. If you're not a citizen and you don't have family there, you won't be able to get in. So please don't go book a flight right now because it will not end well. Thank you so much, Ross. Yes, I can't remember. There was another comment that I lost it. I'm sorry. There are comments here, but that I want to highlight, but shit moves very quickly, so I'm having a hard time keeping up with you guys. But
thank you, Amanda, for thanking Ross.
Love that. Solidarity. Yes. So I just want to reiterate that this weekend, look at some of the local actions that might be happening in your area. There's a lot of actions, some of them, like car caravans, for instance, or, just actions with regards to
also just real quick
commenting on the 4th of July as like a holiday of, freedom and justice and equality. It's bullshit.
Just real quick, I want to let you go. But if you wear a mask to these things, it's shown that there's not a coronavirus uptick around these protests. The upticks come around from people going to bars without masks and fucking spitting in each other's faces. So you can go to a protest and you keep a mask on and, don't fucking go make out with people. I think fingering's allowed. But, so you can go to these protests, just be safe,
Yes, and there's a lot of great there's a lot of great resources. If you look, for instance, into, I think Mutual Aid Disaster Relief has this. There's some herbalist collective that also have like how to stay safe at protests, and they talk about like, you know, the importance of wearing masks, the importance of having supplies with you, like water and all of these things. You know, like a separate water bottle to flush your eyes if you get tear gassed, which I hope obviously doesn't happen to anyone, but just, you know, it's always good to be prepared. So do check that out.
Someone made a great point about China, which 4X Gold made the point that China is basically they're creating their own empire similar to America's, but they're doing it by offering to build up infrastructure in Africa. So they've gone into Africa and made deals with them, like, we'll build up your infrastructure, and meanwhile the United States is like, hey, we'll shoot you if you don't let us do what we want. So while China is buying up these places, you know, by offering to build infrastructure, we're going, hey, we have big guns. So it's like there's two different ways to work with people around the world.
However, it should be noted that it's not always benevolent when China says, hey, we'll build up your infrastructure. It's like, but then we also get your natural resources and shit. So it's that's why they're calling it the new scramble for Africa, because, again, Africa has always been a resource colony for predominantly Europe, but now China is getting in on that, and this is an issue of neocolonialism. So it's very important that we address it as such. And again, this is something that Lee and I talk about a lot, is nuance, the importance of recognizing nuance when we're talking about anybody, from China to Europe to whatever.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you so much. It's really important to acknowledge that just because China is, pushing back against the U.S. empire doesn't mean that they're always great. Important to have the nuance thing.
Thanks for mentioning my book.
Oh, read it with my daughter. That's so cool.
Everyone, the book's called Bullet Points and Punchlines, and it's available right now at leecampbook.com. It looks somewhat like that. And no, I'm not doing the Illuminati symbol with my hands, motherfuckers. Although it'd be funny if I were. Maybe I'll just start saying, yes, I was, because I think it's funny.
Yes. So that it's an awesome book. I definitely recommend it.
Oh, and this is my final promotion for myself. I mentioned the Graham Elwood podcast, also, which you can get at Lee Camp on Twitter, but also my comedy special is free, and I'm excited to see people. It's starting to catch on. People are really watching it. It's got 72 or 3,000 views now, and it's leecampamerican.com. It's completely free to watch. You can go watch it right now. Thank you, Mark. Thank
after
you're
Mark.
Done here.
Thank
you, Watson.
We did mention this, and you folks can check out my interview with Ray Lewis.
Watson's asking for your documentary.
And
Elanons. That's like Eleanor and QAnon were combined.
Which will never happen. So yes, my documentary is up at, I'm writing it in the chat here, hardroadofhope.com. It's available on a sliding scale starting at $5. So please do check that out. Lucy wants to know if this was loud enough.
Thanks, Lizzie.
Yes, thank you. So yes, please do go check out the movie. Go check out Lee's special if you haven't. I hope that you just watched Redacted tonight before this started. All
right, we got 5 minutes left, folks, because you were so willing to donate. It's wonderful that you guys have done that. 5 minutes left. Any last questions? Any parting thoughts? Anything we haven't covered? One thing I was thinking about, if no one's got a question, is we saw Amy McGrath win, quote unquote, in Kentucky against I hear actual progressive. Now, I don't spend hours researching what Charles Booker stands for, but the corporate Democrat has beat Charles Booker, a black man, which is important, I feel, in Kentucky. And at the end of the day, Charles Booker was winning on the election day, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, McGrath won and spent $40 million and all this shit." And you're like, and they closed all the polling places. I mean, it's just like crazy voter suppression created by the Democratic Party, by the Republican Party, and it's fucking ridiculous. They had one polling place apparently in like an area that used to have hundreds. I mean, this is what November is going to look like. They're going to close hundreds of polling places, and fucking people aren't talking about it enough. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's so important when people talk about, and I've had this conversation with the European friends and Swedish friends. They talk about like, oh, the elections are happening. Like, we can't talk.
Thank you, Watson.
Thank you, Watson. I'm assuming I got short, fat fingers is what he wrote. That's not an emoji.
It's not an emoji.
Although I would love to see that.
Pear with short, fat
fingers. It's really important that we talk about the elections. We have to talk about that they're not real. And I don't mean like that we're living in a simulation, not that kind of shit. I mean like they are literally just a fucking farce. 1 in 12 voters have been purged. Polling places, like Lee mentioned, are closing like fucking whack-a-mole. These elections are a fucking farce. So we can't talk about elections without also talking about that, because otherwise we're talking about them like they're a legitimate fucking thing that matters, where our voices are heard. And it's particularly important because when they do polls of voters,
thank you, John,
like, hey, who do you like for the 2020 election? They're polling people who could potentially vote but won't be able to, or will just not make it to the polling place because there's only one in their entire fucking state. So it's very important that we recognize this and we talk about it like it's a farce, because it fucking is.
And should we say again what...
Thank you, John.
Should we say again what so many people... what we've said plenty of times, which is that... voting is important. You got to do it. You got to try and beat what's stolen, but you can't look at it as a way of revolution. Mm-hmm. Revolution and change will not come at the ballot box, at least not right now in the system we have. And so, yes, vote. Fucking go vote. But just don't look at it as the way to change the world. The world is going to change by fucking protest and fucking people, WikiLeaks and people standing up and releasing information and fighting back. And that is where the change comes. The voting booth it's just a thing you do, like, fucking showering. Just clean your ass, Don't talk to people like it's changing the world.
Local elections, again, can be very, very important.
Thank
you so much, Frank. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Frank, and thanks. Oron 6.
He said it's Oron.
Okay.
Or Auron. I'm sorry, I don't actually know how to pronounce it.
But Frank's upset. YouTube won't let me make Hitler joke. I love that he was like, if I donate $20, maybe I'll get this Hitler line in there. Love you, Frank.
Yes. Vienna asks if we can include immigrant rights organizations in future live streams. Yes, I'll make a note of that as well.
Absolutely. There's some organizations and people that we reached out to see if because I felt like I wanted their approval to donate to them. Like, hey, we're going to do this. And some of them we haven't heard back from. Anyway, there's some issues. But yeah, feel free to recommend places to donate the funds each week.
Yeah. Yay, thank you. Tabby Cat. I also saw your note that you donate $50 if I got Lee to get red streaks in his hair. I think that would look rather horrifying. Just like I would look horrifying with black hair. And also, I don't think I would win that argument. I would have to knock him out or something, and I'm not really into that. So
this is like a fraternity drawing the dick on the forehead scenario.
Yes. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. I so appreciate the donation.
I think we have. I think we've used up our time, and I think Richard has the closing line. Hitler still sucks. Totally agree. Totes agree. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're going to wrap up here, but so many of you have donated. This is to help promote Eleanor's film, which everyone should watch, hardroadofhope.com. We will be back next week. We're trying to nail down a time that's more regular, but it's always either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and probably Friday or Saturday. But a lot of people liked
strike.
A lot of people like the idea of Fridays, so we're going to try maybe and do more often Friday. Join our email list so that you can find out which day of the week we're doing this. And it's at, you can join that by texting the word redacted to 33777. So that's redacted to 33777. That'll get you signed up to our free email list. And check out our podcast, Common Censored. Free every week.
And every other week, I do my Act Out podcast as well. So, and that's on all the same platforms as Common Censored. So, yeah, thank you all so much for hanging out with us. Thank you so much for the donations. It is greatly appreciated. Again, the film is available at hardroadofhope.com. And you can see more of the articles and the photojournalism and stuff that I do over at artkillingapathy.com. All of Lee's stuff is at
leecamp.com.
Take your time. Thank you again, everyone. Y'all are awesome, and we will see you next time.